What's going on? You know it's your boy, Little T. Back and full effect. You already know how I'm rocking, man. Hey, man, check it out. So we got how good was Chad Ochocinco Rosado Johnson? Now let me chill. He don't like when niggas call him Rosado. I ain't going to disrespect him like that. But my boy Chad Ochocinco Johnson actually was. My boy was nasty. Stop playing my boy. My man was him coming off that line. The feet work was crazy.
His name is permanently velcroed into NFL history.
Footwork
Between the
was
gold
crazy.
teeth, gold hair, and gold jacket,
I
Johnson
don't know what
was
he was
the
doing with that
gold
blonde
standard
mohawk,
for
bro. That shit
NFL
was
receivers
wild.
in the 2000s. But how good was number 85, or Ochocinco, actually?
Let's go.
Chad Johnson
Let's
was
go, boy.
raised by his grandmother in an area of Miami that was pretty much the real-life version of GTA Vice City. But Chad found an escape from the money, hustlers, and poorly animated streetwalkers through football. From a young age, Johnson's playmaking ability was obvious, but poor behavior and even poorer grades kept him from playing D1 college ball. Instead, Johnson played for Santa Monica Community College, where wide receivers coach Charles Collins took the young, cocky wideout under his wing.
I
And he
thought you
told
went to
Johnson
Harvard,
exactly
Ocho.
what he needed to hear.
He thought he could play, but he couldn't play worth a turd. Yeah, he was really a turd.
Nonetheless, with coach's help, Johnson quickly shed the turd moniker and became a key contributor to the team. But even though Johnson was maturing on the field, issues in the classroom persisted, making him academically ineligible to play in the '98 season. But
Damn.
with guidance from Coach Collins and his tell-it-like-it-is approach,
He was really a turd.
Chad got his grades up and stepped his game up. After 3 years of junior college, he transferred to Oregon State, leading the Beavers to an 11-1 record in a
Hey.
season that saw Johnson catching everything,
what I'm
including
talking about,
the
Ocho.
attention of NFL scouts.
Y'all talking about me?
Johnson was selected 36th
So that-
overall
I'm
in
sorry,
the
you
01
see me keep
draft by
looking.
the Cincinnati Bengals.
Cincinnati
Damn
has
it,
selected
almost had
wide
it.
receiver from Oregon State University, Chad Johnson.
A team that hadn't delivered their fans a winning season for over a decade. And the team continued to struggle under Chad's first 2 seasons. But 85's commitment and love for the game could not waver.
I've heard players talking about that they don't want to come to the Bengals, but this is where I want to be. Are they losing? Well, I'm going to do everything I can to change everything around.
Johnson was so dedicated to his craft, the guy never left Paul Brown Stadium. His first 2 years in the league, Chad literally slept in the stadium's players' lounge, making it easy to be that first one in the building, last
man
one
said
out
he was
kinda
saving
guy.
money.
Following a disastrous 2-win season in '02, the Bengals hired Marvin Lewis to transform the team into a playoff contender. But Chad Johnson had set his sights even higher.
Secret.
I want to be one of the greatest to ever play this game.
That's not a secret.
But I want to be better than Rice.
That's right.
Y'all got to help me.
And we're gonna help
Y'all
you.
say y'all
Then,
got to
even
help
with
me.
the sky-high
I
aspirations,
like
since he
Ocho,
started
bro. He ain't afraid to
2003
ask
with
for
a
help.
disappointing 1-4 record. The
Y'all
breaking
gotta
point
help
for
me.
Chad came after a Week 5 overtime loss against Buffalo. Johnson was so
Hey.
frustrated by his performance. After the game, he
Oh,
wrote
damn.
Bengals offensive coordinator Brad
thought he snagged
Protkowski
that
a
one.
$100,000 check and told him to cash it if he couldn't perform at a high level against their rival Baltimore Ravens.
Next game, I went crazy. I went off.
Chad went for 130 yards while also smoking Hall of Fame safety Ed Reed on an 82-yard touchdown. Brodkowski
bro.
tore up Johnson's $100,000 check the very next day. As the season rolled on, Johnson's dynamic big play ability as well as his national popularity were on the rise. He loved the game, but as he would soon begin to find
The
out,
game didn't
he
love him.
also loved making the lives of opposing defenders absolutely miserable,
Oh.
something he did with his
I
feet
already
and
said.
his mouth.
What? Oh, get to him. Let's go. Get to him. Get some. Let's go.
Johnson's verbal jabs
Yeah, he
and
definitely
creative
started talking
one-liners
shit.
were legendary and redefined NFL trash talk.
Hey, come on. I want you right there.
Chad got under his opponent's skin not just before or after the play, but even during.
Chad Ochocinco, who is known to talk. This dude was the only player, the only receiver to ever talk trash to me during a route.
Johnson
How the hell
finished
you do
2003 setting a new Bengals single-season franchise record
How
for
you
receiving
talk trash
yards,
during
the
a
first of
route?
3 times Johnson would break it during his career. Over the next 2 years, Johnson's game improved. So did his knack for coming up with new ways to get under his opponent's skin. Once sending a care package of Pepto-Bismol to the entire Browns secondary, suggesting they'd be sick to their stomach trying to cover 85 in their upcoming game.
People thought that was a ploy. It wasn't. Chad was a showman that way, and he needed that.
Then, in '05, he created his famous Who Covered 85 in '05 list, which listed names of opposing teams' star DBs next to a space for Chad to mark if they successfully covered him or not.
It was checking him off week to week.
Coach Lewis wasn't a fan of that one.
I'm
Why?
always telling him, no, don't do that. Don't do that.
But cover list or no cover list, it was clear no one could cover Chad Johnson.
85 will always be open.
2005
85
was the
always
year the
gonna be
rest of the
open.
Bengals finally caught up to Johnson's high-level play.
Cincinnati clinches their first division title since 1990.
Johnson led the AFC in receiving yards for
Hey.
the third straight year with
3 years straight?
1,432.
Okay.
But it was his over-the-top touchdown
Toe tapper,
celebrations
toe
that
tapper.
elevated Johnson's profile from star receiver to superstar receiver. There was the river
Hey,
dance performance.
hey,
Then
hey.
he resuscitated a ball with CPR, proposed to a cheerleader, and performed a pylon putt-putt routine, complete with a Tiger Woods fist pump. That's right, it was a Bengal shouting out a Tiger. Gotta love it. But there was
Man.
more. On Christmas
They gotta
Eve,
let him celebrate
Santa
like that
Ocho
again, man.
followed
That
up
made the
a
game fun.
41-yard touchdown by pulling
That
out
wasn't
a
hurting
Santa
nobody.
bag and tossing gifts into the stands.
See, like that, that ain't
Despite
hurting
Johnson
nobody.
putting the fun back into the no-fun league, an early playoff loss to
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, plus an injury-plagued
Damn.
start to the 06 season, left Johnson convinced he needed a change to get out of his rut. It all started innocently enough. As part of the NFL's celebration of Spanish Heritage Month, Johnson began referring to himself by the supposed Spanish translation
That
of his
blonde
jersey
shit was
number,
not it, though, bro. I'm not
Ochocinco.
gonna lie.
He tried to speak a lot of Spanish, and he was always wrong when he tried to put them into a sentence.
Máquina. Ven aquí.
So
Ven
Ochocinco
aquí.
just kind of made sense.
Because Ochocinco wasn't the correct Spanish translation of 85. But Google Translate was only 6 months old at the time, so Chad and everybody else just went with it.
Ochocinco from now on. Anybody that writes about whatever I say today, you call me Ochocinco. Do not say Chad.
The nickname became such a hit that Chad had the equipment manager create the Velcro to mock up a tearaway Ochocinco jersey for pregame. And just like that, a new persona instantly breathed new life into Johnson. In a Week 10 matchup against the Chargers, Chad went God mode, hauling in 260 receiving yards to go with a pair of touchdowns. Johnson calls this game the high-water mark of his career. Even today,
And
on
it
those
just
rare
fit him. It
occasions
just
when
fit him
Chad
now.
isn't
Like even
eating
when I
at
did
his
the
favorite restaurant,
They say breakfast
McDonald's.
of champions, lunch, and
Even
dinner
when I
of
did the
champions.
intro, I said
Don't let them
Ochocinco.
tell you McDonald's is bad for you.
fancier restaurants, Chad's been known to tip his waitstaff $260. That's $1 for every yard he gained during that epic afternoon against the Chargers in 2006. But the numbers didn't stop there. The next game in New Orleans, more fireworks, with Ocho lighting up the scoreboard with 3 touchdowns and a $190 in receiving yards, enough to give Johnson a then NFL record for most receiving yards in back-to-back games ever.
Hey.
The following week, he did it again,
Damn.
going for 123 yards against the Cleveland
That's how
Browns,
you feel, Ocho?
accumulating the most receiving
Ugh.
yards across a 3-game span since the NFL-AFL merger. The Bengals finished with just a 500 record, but Ochocinco still
Was
turned
snagging
in a
them
monster
bitches.
season. He caught an NFL-best 1,369 receiving yards, enough to become the first Bengal ever to lead the league in receiving yards. So, how do you celebrate such an accomplishment? If you're Chad Johnson, you celebrate by racing a thoroughbred racehorse. And Johnson beat the horse by 12 lengths. Sure, Johnson was given a 100-yard head start in a 200-yard race, but we can't let facts get in the way of fun, right? Now, if you think the pony stunt was a bit braggadocious, brace yourself.
Oh,
Because
yeah, the Hall of
Ocho
Famer?
takes it
A
to
lot
the
of people ain't
next
like
level
that.
in week 1 of the 07 season.
What does that say? Future Hall of Fame.
Was this stunt a little silly? Yes. Was it a little disrespectful? Maybe. Head coach Marvin Lewis, what did you think of the move?
Bad move.
But at the end of the day, wasn't this just a fun guy doing something a little funny? You be the judge.
Child, please.
Child, please.
Child, please. Child, please.
Child,
1 week later
please.
came the famous shootout by the lake, where Chad went for 209 receiving yards
200?
and 2 touchdowns. The second was followed up with an ill-advised leap into Cleveland's notoriously rowdy dog pound section.
They was
Ocho
gonna
was
beat his
doused in beer
ass.
and given the Cleveland salute. But more importantly, by game's end, he
rewrote the Bengals record book. You're now the all-time leader in yards receiving, surpassing Isaac Curtis. What does that mean to you to hold that kind of record in your career?
It means a lot. It says a lot.
And it should. It's still a record he holds
Hey,
to this
get
day.
snagged.
But then again, Chad is.
The Bengals all-time leader in pretty much every receiving category.
Fast forward to week 12 against the Titans, and all cameras were on Ocho, when he borrowed one of those cameras to celebrate 3 touchdowns and a career-high 12 receptions.
And now he's running the camera. He's taking the crowd shot.
It was a special day for Chad. Not only did he secure another
Oh my
1,000-yard
God,
receiving
nasty.
year, the sixth consecutive of his
seen that
career,
toe
but
tag, bro?
Ocho also broke the Bengals' all-time reception record. Chad finished the year breaking the Bengals' single-season receiving record for
That
the
boy was
third
catching
time
them
in his
toe
career
tappers,
with
boy.
1,440 yards. Then, just before the start of the 2008 season, Johnson legally changed his name to Chad Ochocinco. But with everybody already calling him Ochocinco, why go through the trouble of making it official? It all goes back to 2006. Ochocinco was fined $5 million for
altering the NFL uniform.
Johnson was so mad, he changed his name just to stick it to the NFL and make them put Ochocinco on his jersey.
People are like, that's stupid. Ochocinco, that's not even 85. Okay, who cares? He gets a percentage of every sale of a jersey that's sold. I think it's brilliant.
And Ocho sold lots of jerseys,
Oh,
giving
hell yeah.
him lots to smile about in 08. But on the field, not so much smiling. Ocho had an awful first season as Ochocinco, with the Bengals starting 08, going 0-8.
Damn.
Things didn't turn around until the next season, when Chad gifted fans another term to add to the sports pop culture lexicon. Chad gave us Child Please.
Child,
Child,
please.
please. Child, please. Child, please.
Child, please.
Child, please.
Which is basically
A nice way of telling someone, you know, you.
And it was that child please /
You.
attitude that Cincinnati
Child
needed
please.
to get back on track in 09. Things got fun again. During preseason, we saw Ocho kicking field goals. By midseason, he had a very innocent light bribery charge.
Oh yeah, with the dollar.
in his hand as if he said, "Oh, I bet you $1 that that's a completed pass." Either that, he was going to pay off the officials.
Then, after taking one to the house against Detroit, Chad was back to his old showman self, with a little sideline dress-up routine complete with a sombrero and poncho. Some found the
Ochocinco.
celebration disrespectful, but imagine how much worse it could have been had the petting zoo donkey Chad hired not been turned away by security. That would have been offensive. But there was nothing offensive about the Bengals' offense in 09. They finished with a 10-6
Okay,
record
they
and
looking
won
good.
the AFC North. Cincy fans had visions of
2010,
Super Bowl
2010.
44 dancing in their heads. And
Patriots.
finally, the time to win it all was
Damn, he
not
missed.
now. Bengals were knocked out of the playoffs by a pre-butt fumble Mark Sanchez and the Jets. It was a brutal loss, with Chad held to just 28 yards, courtesy of
Darrelle
Hall
Revis.
of Fame corner Darrelle
Yeah.
Revis.
He be talking about
Ochocinco
Darrelle
wasn't
Revis.
shy, making it known who the Bengals needed in 2010. And the front office went for it, bringing the equally outrageous Terrell Owens to Southwest Ohio.
I'm definitely pleased to be here.
Believing T.O. was the missing piece to bring it all together, expectations for the dynamic duo of Batman and Robin and the entire Bengals squad were higher than ever.
With what we have on paper, if we don't win a Super Bowl this year, it's a damn shame.
But the thing about NFL football, they don't play it on paper. They play it in real life.
Facts.
And the Ocho Owens experiment
Was
was
terrible.
a disaster. T.O. did lead all Cincy receivers in yards, receptions, and TDs, but the Bengals went from a playoff caliber 10-6 team without him to crashing and burning with him at 4-12.
Just terrible. I mean, that's just plain and simple.
Maybe it was too much ego, too much personality for a single locker room. But the Bengals clearly overestimated the impact these two former All-Pros could contribute on the field so late in their careers. The only time the dynamic
Damn,
duo
man, they would've
scored in
been
the same
good.
game was in Week 7 against
That's
Atlanta.
supposed to be an
This was
iconic
one of
duo.
only 2 games Chad would have over 100 yards that season. The other game, that came against the team he would ultimately be traded to in the offseason, the New England Patriots. The Bengals felt Chad's on- and off-the-field distraction now outweighed his performance. The Hall of Fame jacket, the name change, the constant trash talk. Those were fine when the team was winning, but after going 4-12, his antics were suddenly less easy to tolerate.
Right.
But Chad welcomed the
Everything
change of
cool
scenery
when you
and
winning.
looked forward to working with Bill Belichick, who is known for getting the very best out of his players and had a history of rebooting troubled veteran receivers. Prime example, Randy Moss, who saw a career resurgence
'cause he
when
was
joined
terrible
the
with the
Patriots in
Raiders.
2007. Again, it all sounded good on paper. But Ochocinco struggled, shifting from star receiver in Cincy to barely contributing role player with the Patriots. He turned in the least productive season of his career, catching just 15 passes for 276 yards and 1 touchdown, all career lows. The Patriots did make it to the Super
Damn.
Bowl, and Chad did give Tom Brady his longest play of the game, but with younger talent like Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, and Rob Gronkowski on the roster, it came as no surprise when Ochocinco was released that offseason. A month later, friends and family back in Miami were hyped to learn Ochocinco inked a 1-year deal with his hometown Dolphins. it was all coming full circle.
But then something bad
It's
happened.
good to be home, and I don't have a choice but to succeed.
And looking to shed his controversial image, Chad legally changed his name back to Johnson before reporting to Dolphins camp, thinking it would make him less of a distraction. But the thing is, whether it was Johnson or Ochocinco, Chad was still Chad and would always be a distraction. Just a couple weeks into camp, Johnson got into a verbal altercation with his wife, which quickly turned violent.
NFL wide receiver Chad Johnson faces a domestic abuse charge after a violent incident involving his wife.
Johnson headbutted her, causing
Damn.
a 3-inch laceration to her forehead.
Oh shit. He said he headbutted her. Damn, he got a thick ass head. Look at that bitch.
Incident involving his wife.
Headbutting
Johnson
her is
headbutted
crazy.
her, causing a 3-inch laceration to her forehead. The Dolphins released Johnson the next day.
I just think it's the best for both of us that, we kind of part ways at this point in time.
And just like that, Johnson would never play another down in the NFL. Over his electric 11-year career, he amassed 6 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pros, and every major Bengals all-time receiving record. His feet were arguably the fastest we've ever seen, and so was his mouth. That just never seemed to stop running. But he used both flawlessly to be a nightmare for opposing defenders.
That's facts,
Love
that's
him or hate him,
facts.
he didn't care, as long as you were tuned to The Ocho Show. Subscribe and watch
Hey man,
more.
he made the NFL fun. I don't care what nobody say. That shit was funny when he was in the NFL. But yeah, man, that's gonna do it for that boy Ochocinco. Let me see what comes below. Make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Hope you enjoyed the vibe, man. Peace.